Last year, I learned the most expensive lesson of my life. It cost me 10 years, my savings, my peace of mind, and a $1 million mortgage. I thought I was paying for my parents' stability, for the home they always dreamed of. Instead, I was funding my younger brother's wedding gift. Because after I made the last payment, my mom looked me straight in the eyes and said, "Thanks for paying the $1 million mortgage, but you're not getting the house. My name is Layla. I'm 32. And I was the responsible one my whole life. If you're the eldest daughter, you already know what that means. You grow up faster. You fix things. You sacrifice. And somehow, you're still treated like a backup plan, never the star." My little brother Ethan was the star. He was the baby, the golden boy, the one my mom, Susan, talked about to everyone. "He's so smart. He has such a bright future. He's going to give me beautiful grandbabies one day. And me? Layla's doing fine," she'd say if anyone asked. "She's working in IT or computers or something. For the record, I'm a senior software engineer. I work in cybersecurity. I make good money. I worked my way up from literally nothing." But to my mom, what I did was just this vague, boring job somewhere behind a screen. Despite that, I worshipped my parents for a long time. My dad, Michael, was quieter, gentler. He worked at the post office until his knees gave out. My mom was the loud one, the planner, the emotional center of everything. We grew up in a small rented house. My parents talked for years about how they wish they had bought something when they were younger. "Rent is just throwing money away," my dad would say, rubbing his forehead over a pile of bills. "Yeah, well, we couldn't afford a down payment," my mom would reply. "If we had a house, at least we'd have something to leave you kids." I swallowed that sentence whole. Something to leave you kids. It stuck in my chest like a promise. Fast forward to when I was 24. I had just gotten my first big promotion and my first real salary. I moved out, got a tiny one-bedroom apartment, and finally had more than a couple $100s in my account. One night I was visiting my parents, and my mom pulled out a folder. "Look," she said, sliding some glossy printouts across the table. "Houses. We've been looking." My heart sped up. The photos were beautiful big windows, modern kitchens, lawns. Then I saw the prices. "Mom," I laughed nervously, "these are expensive." "We're just looking," my dad said softly. It's fun to dream. But Mom's eyes had that manic sparkle they got when she fixated on something. "Why not?" she said. "You're doing so well now, Layla. The bank would approve a big mortgage with your income, right?" I frowned. "For me, maybe. But for you too? Your debt-to-income ratio, we'd put it in our names." She cut me off. "You'd just help us a bit with the loan. We'd pay you back. We just need someone with your credit to get approved." It sounded wrong. But then my dad spoke. "We're not asking you to buy us a house," he said gently. "Just to help with the mortgage in the beginning. We can handle the rest once I get my pension sorted." Mom leaned forward, her voice softening. "Layla, imagine us finally having our own place. A family home. Somewhere you and Ethan can always come back to. And one day, when we're gone, it'll be yours and his. You'll have something. You'll have something." The same words. The same promise. I stared at the papers. My brain did the math. The numbers were scary, but not impossible. $1 million house in our area wasn't crazy. With my salary and a good interest rate, it could work if we all contributed. I remember looking at my dad's tired eyes, at my mom's eager expression, and hearing myself say, "Okay, let's do it." The bank didn't want to put my parents as the main borrowers. Their income was too low. So the loan officer suggested this structure. I'd be the primary borrower. My parents would be co-borrowers, but the house title will be in our names, my mom said firmly. "Right?" The officer shrugged. "However you want the deed recorded. It doesn't have to match the loan." I hesitated. "Shouldn't my name be on the deed if I'm on the mortgage?" "We can add you later," my mom said quickly. "It's just simpler this way right now. Besides, it's our family home. We're not going to kick you out." She laughed like it was the most ridiculous thing she'd ever heard. My dad stayed quiet. That should have been my first red flag, but I signed. We all did, and just like that, I was responsible for a $1 million mortgage on a house that, on paper, I didn't own. The first few years were brutal. I cut back on everything. No vacations, no new car. I meal prepped cheap food and said no to nights out. Every month, the mortgage payment came out of my account automatically. My parents were supposed to transfer me their portion, but it never really worked out that way. Your dad's medical bills were higher this month. The car broke down. We're a little tight right now. Sometimes they send a few hundred, sometimes nothing. Sometimes my mom would say, "We'll make it up to you, honey," and I'd pretend that didn't make me want to scream. Meanwhile, Ethan floated through life. He went to an expensive private college, where he changed majors 3 times, then dropped out to figure himself out. He lived at home rent-free. He drove nice used cars my parents helped him buy. He took trips with friends. He dated, partied, and posted pictures of his soft life while I worked nights and weekends. If I ever commented, my mom would snap, "He's just young, Layla." Not everyone wants to live like a robot. A robot. That's what she called me. I was 29 when I had my first real breakdown over it. I remember sitting in my tiny apartment, staring at my bank account, and realizing that, despite earning 6 figures, I had barely any savings. All my money was going into a home I didn't live in and technically didn't own. I called my mom, voice shaking. "Mom, I can't keep doing this alone. We need to restructure. Maybe sell the house and downsize. Or refinance with you and Dad taking on more." She sighed dramatically. "Oh, here we go. You're doing so well. And we're old, Layla. You really want to kick your parents out onto the street?" "That's not what I'm saying," I protested. "I'm just saying this isn't fair. You'll get the house one day," she replied sharply. "Stop acting like we're strangers." Again, that promise dangled in front of me like a carrot. One day, last year, I made the final payment. It should have been a celebration. A huge milestone. I'd paid off a $1 million mortgage before 33. That's insane. The bank sent the paid in full letter and I held it with shaking hands. I drove over to my parents' house with it, my heart pounding. When I walked in, my mom was in the kitchen, humming and chopping vegetables. My dad was in his recliner, watching TV with the volume low. "Hey," I said, holding up the envelope. "Guess what?" My mom turned, saw the letterhead, and her eyes widened. "Is that the mortgage?" I said, grinning. "It's done. Paid. We're free." My dad smiled faintly. "That's wonderful, sweetheart." Mom dried her hands and rushed over, hugging me. "I knew you could do it, my smart girl." For a moment, everything felt worth it. All the late nights, all the anxiety, all the sacrifices. We sat at the dining table, and I spread out the paperwork, the final amortization schedule, the confirmation. There was a buzzing in my chest as I said the words I'd been waiting to say for a decade. "So," I began, trying to sound casual, "now that the mortgage is paid, we should probably talk about putting my name on the deed, right? Like we talked about before." The air shifted. My mom's smile froze. My dad's eyes dropped to the table. "What?" I asked lightly. "What's with the faces?" My mom inhaled slowly. "Layla, there's something we need to tell you." My stomach turned to ice. She reached over, patted my hand, and said it in that fake, gentle voice she used when she knew she was about to hurt me. "Thanks for paying the $1 million mortgage," she said. "But you're not getting the house." I laughed. I genuinely thought she was joking. "What?" She squeezed my fingers. "Your father and I have decided. We're gifting the house to Ethan." The room spun. "To Ethan?" I repeated. She nodded, as if she'd just said they were giving him their old couch. "He's getting married," she continued. "He and Chloe need a stable place to raise a family. We're getting older. It makes sense to pass the house to him now while we can." I stared at her. "What about me?" "You have your own place," she said. "You're doing well. You don't need a house like this. Ethan does. He's going to give us grandchildren. Well, you've always been so independent." Independent. That's what she called it. Not single, not childless. Independent. My chest burned. "But I paid for it," I said quietly. "I paid the mortgage. Almost entirely." "You guys barely don't start," my mom snapped, the softness vanishing. "We gave you life. We raised you. This obsession with money." "This isn't an obsession," I interrupted, my voice rising. "This is 10 years of my life. 10 years of payments for a house that isn't even in my name." "You promised." "I never promised you'd get it alone," she said sharply. "We said the house would be for you kids. Ethan is one of the kids. It's our house. We can gift it how we want." I looked at my dad desperately. "Dad, say something." He looked torn, eyes glistening. "It's complicated, Layla, is it?" I shot back. "Because to me it sounds pretty simple." Mom folded her arms. We're not changing our minds. Ethan and Chloe already know. We're announcing it officially at their engagement party. The betrayal hit like a physical blow. They'd already told him. They'd already decided. I was the last to know. I stood up so fast my chair scraped loudly. I need to go, I whispered. Now. Don't be dramatic, my mom scolded. We're still family. I walked out without another word. I cried the whole drive home. Not pretty tears. Ugly, heaving sobs. I had to pull over at one point because I couldn't see the road. 10 years. $1 million. For what? So my freeloading brother could get a free house and a cute story for his engagement party? By the time I reached my apartment, something inside me snapped. No. This is not how my story ends. I pulled out my laptop and dug through every document I had. Bank statements, emails, texts. There it was. From years ago. Mom, when the house is paid off, it'll be yours and Ethan's. We'll make sure you're taken care of for everything you've done. Another one. Mom, we'll put your name on the deed later, once things settle down. You know, this is your house too. I had proof. Maybe not a formal contract, but evidence that they had acknowledged my contribution and intentions. Still, I wasn't a lawyer. I didn't know if any of this mattered legally. All I knew was that letting this go would destroy me. The next day, I booked a consultation with a property attorney named Rachel. Her office was sleek, all glass and plants and light. She looked to be in her 40s, sharp eyes, neatly tied hair, no nonsense energy. So she said, after I told her everything, you paid $1 million toward a house that you have no legal ownership in. And your parents now want to gift it to your brother, correct? I said, swallowing. Can I do anything? Or did I just donate a house? She leaned back thinking, on paper they're the owners, she said. They can sign it over to whomever they want. However, she tapped her pen. There's a concept called a constructive trust or resulting trust, basically. The court can recognize that even if your name wasn't on the deed. Equity says you have a beneficial interest because you paid for it under a certain understanding. Meaning we may be able to argue that part of that house, maybe even most of it, effectively belongs to you, she said. At minimum, we can likely prevent them from transferring clear title without dealing with your claim. Can I stop them? I asked, voice low. From gifting it to him? We can file a lis pendens, she said. A notice of a pending lawsuit against the property. That way, anyone looking at the title sees there's a legal dispute. It makes it very unattractive to transfer, sell, or refinance until it's resolved. It was like a tiny light switched on in my chest. What would that look like? I asked. She gave me a thin smile. It would look like you finally standing up for yourself. I didn't tell my parents I'd seen a lawyer. I didn't tell Ethan either. Instead, I waited. A week later, I got a call from my mom. Don't forget Ethan's engagement party is Saturday, she said brightly. We're so excited. We're making a little speech. You'll be there, right? Oh, I'll be there, I said calmly. Good, she replied. And Layla? I hope you've had time to cool off. I don't want any drama. Of course not, I said. No drama. After we hung up, Rachel emailed me documents to sign. We filed the lawsuit and the lis pendens the same week. The house, their precious house, was now legally marked as disputed property. I kept working, eating, sleeping like normal, but emotionally, I was a live wire. There was guilt. There was anger. There was fear. I still loved my dad. Part of me still loved my mom, or at least who I thought she was. But I loved myself too. And staying quiet would mean choosing them over me one more time. I was done doing that. The party was held ironically. At the house, Ethan and his fiancée, Chloe, had gone all out. Balloon arch at the doorway, catered food, a bar in the backyard, fairy lights strung up over the patio. As I walked up the path, I caught snippets of conversation. Such a beautiful home. You're so lucky. Ethan, your parents must be so proud. I clenched my jaw. Ethan spotted me and grinned. Hey sis, he called, walking over to hug me. Glad you could make it. Wouldn't miss it, I said, returning the hug stiffly. He pulled back and gave me a playful punch on the arm. No hard feelings, okay? Mom said you were being weird about the house thing, but we're family. It's all love. I stared at him. You knew? He shrugged. Yeah. They told me months ago. They wanted it to be a surprise. Honestly, it just makes sense. You're good on your own. I need the help more. I wondered if he heard himself. I wondered if he realized how entitled he sounded. right, I said coolly. Makes perfect sense. As the night went on, my mom floated around in hostess mode, accepting compliments, basking in attention. My dad stayed mostly near the bar, drinking more than I'd ever seen him drink. At one point, he pulled me aside. Layla, he said softly, eyes bloodshot. You know I never wanted it to be like this. Then why is it like this? I asked. He looked down at his drink. Your mother, she gets ideas. She thinks she's doing what's best. For who? I demanded. For Ethan? He didn't answer. Dad, I said, voice shaking. I'm suing. His head snapped up. What? I talked to a lawyer. We've already filed. There's a notice on the house title. He stared at me like he didn't recognize me. Then slowly, something like relief crossed his face. Good, he whispered. Good. I don't have the strength to fight her. But you do. I blinked back tears. You're not mad? I'm mad at myself, he murmured. Not you. Before I could respond, my mom tapped a spoon against a glass from across the room. Everyone? She called. Gather around. We have an announcement. My heart hammered. This was it. Everyone gathered in the living room. Ethan and Chloe stood hand in hand, beaming. My mom stood beside them, glowing with self-satisfaction. My dad moved to her side, but his gaze flicked nervously to me. Thank you all for being here, my mom began. We're so happy to celebrate Ethan and Chloe's engagement. They are the future of this family. I clenched my teeth, and, she continued, her voice thick with emotion, as part of their future, Michael and I have decided to gift them something very special. She spread her arms, indicating the house, this home, she said proudly. We're signing it over to them. People clapped. Chloe gasped, putting a hand over her mouth, tears in her eyes. Ethan puffed up like a peacock. Mom, he exclaimed. You didn't, we did, she interrupted, smiling. You deserve it. I let the applause go on for a moment. My heart pounded in my ears. I felt every eye in the room like a spotlight. Then I stepped forward. Wow, I said loudly. That's quite a gift. The room quieted. My mom turned, slightly annoyed. Layla, she said through a strained smile. We'll talk later. No, I replied, calm now. We'll talk now. All eyes turned to me. Ethan shifted uncomfortably. What are you doing? My mom hissed. I took a deep breath. I'm so happy that everyone is here, I said, mimicking her tone. Because I want witnesses for this too. Layla, Ethan started. But I held up a hand. 10 years ago, I said, voice steady. I agreed to take on a $1 million mortgage so my parents could have this house. I paid the monthly payments. Not them. Me. I sacrificed my 20s, my savings, my stability. There's bank proof. If anyone is curious. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. My mom's smile crumbled. This isn't appropriate, she snapped. What's not appropriate? I shot back. Telling everyone you're gifting a house I paid for. Because that's what's happening here. Chloe looked from me to Ethan, confused. Is that true? Layla, you're exaggerating, my mom said, her voice rising. We helped show your bank statements then, I said. Let's compare. Silence. I used that moment. But here's the real fun part, I continued. My parents can't legally gift this house cleanly to anyone right now. My mom's face drained of color. What are you talking about? I looked straight at her. I hired an attorney, I said. We've filed a lawsuit asserting my equitable interest in this house. There is a lis pendens on the title. That means any transfer is under legal dispute. Anyone who tries to buy, receive, or refinance this property will see that giant red flag. People looked around, murmuring again. Chloe slowly dropped Ethan's hand. You're suing us? My mom whispered, stunned. Yes, I said simply. I am. You ungrateful little O. I'm very grateful. I cut in. I'm grateful I finally woke up. I'm grateful I stopped letting you use me like an ATM. I'm grateful that a piece of paper doesn't erase 10 years of sacrifice. Ethan stepped forward, face flushed. You're ruining our night, Layla? I laughed softly. Funny, you were trying to ruin my decade. The party fell apart after that. Guests made awkward excuses and left. Chloe cornered Ethan in the kitchen. I heard her hiss. Did you know about any of this? And his fumbling denials. My mom screamed, cried, and called me every name she could think of. How could you do this to your own family? She sobbed. How could you do this to your own daughter? I finally snapped back. My dad just sat at the table, face in his hands. I left that night shaking, exhausted and lighter than I'd felt in years. The lawsuit dragged on for months. My mom tried emotional blackmail, text messages, voicemails, guilt trips. You're sending us to an early grave. You're tearing this family apart. Money has poisoned you. I saved everything and sent most of it to Rachel. I didn't respond to most of them. Ethan didn't talk to me at all. I later heard through a cousin that Chloe had called off the engagement temporarily, telling him, if your family is this messy, I need to know what I'm walking into. Actions. Meet consequences. In mediation, Rachel laid everything out clearly. My payment history, the messages, the implied promises, the fact that without my income, the house wouldn't exist. My mom tried to argue that it was just rent. Rent to who? Rachel asked calmly. My client doesn't live there. Eventually, my parents' own lawyer pulled them aside and, from what I was told, said something along the lines of, if this goes to trial, you will likely lose more than you want. Settle? The settlement wasn't perfect, but it was fair. I obtained a 70% legal interest in the property. They kept 30%. The house was to be sold within 6 months. After expenses, I'd receive 70% of the proceeds. They could no longer gift it to Ethan. My mom was furious, of course. She accused me of stealing from them. You stole from me first, I replied. I just took back what was mine. My dad, quietly, met me for coffee one day. I'm proud of you, he said, voice thick. You did what I should have done. You protected yourself. I teared up. I didn't want it to be like this, Dad. Me neither, he said. But we made our choices. Now you're making yours. The house sold a few months later. Seeing the listing online felt surreal. The photos of the kitchen I'd eaten in, the living room I'd decorated for Christmas, the yard where Ethan and I had played when we were younger, it all looked like someone else's life. When the sale went through and the money hit my account, I stared at the number for a long time. $700 and something thousand. It wasn't just money. It was validation. It was proof that I hadn't imagined the injustice. It was the physical manifestation of my spine growing in. I used part of it as a down payment on my own home. In my name, just mine. It wasn't as big as my parents' old house, but it was beautiful. Sunlight through big windows, a quiet neighborhood, space for a home office, a guest room, and maybe one day a family of my own if I chose that. I didn't invite my mom to see it. My relationship with my parents is complicated. I went low contact with my mom. We text occasionally, mostly about my dad's health. She still sees herself as the victim in all this. If you hadn't been so greedy, she said once, we'd all still be living happily together. If you hadn't been so entitled, I replied, we might have actually been happy. Ethan and I are not close. He moved into a small apartment with Chloe and eventually did marry her. They're figuring life out without a free house. Honestly, that's probably the best thing that could have happened for him. My dad comes to visit my new place sometimes. We sit on the balcony with coffee, and he looks around with a soft, sad smile. You did this, he says. On your own. Yes, I say. On my own. Here's what I want anyone listening to take away from my story. Love your family. Be kind. Be generous if you can, but never sign something you don't fully understand just because someone shares your DNA. Never let your family be the reason you sacrifice your future for someone else's comfort, and never, ever believe that being the responsible one means you have to be the doormat. I thought revenge would look like some dramatic cinematic moment of payback, but in reality, my revenge was quieter. My revenge was a lawsuit. My revenge was a boundary. My revenge was a deed with my name on it. The sweetest part? Knowing that the next time my mom wants something big, she'll think twice before assuming I'll pay. Equals, if you were in my position, would you have sued your own parents? Or would you have walked away and cut your losses? Let me know in the comments. I read them, and I'm really curious how you see this. And if you've ever been the responsible one in your family, taken advantage of, or guilt-tripped into sacrificing your own dreams, you're not alone. If my story resonated with you, don't forget to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss the next story, because sometimes the best revenge is finally choosing yourself.